So according to the MIT Media Lab, 95% of corporate AI pilots produce absolutely zero measurable return on investment.
Yeah, which is just a staggering number to hear out loud.
Right, 95%. I mean, you buy the most advanced technology in human history, you plug it into your organization, and functionally nothing happens.
Exactly. It's just a complete commercial ghost town for most of these places.
But then you look at a parallel report from McKinsey, and they found that high-performing companies using AI are 3 times more likely to see measurable, transformative bottom-line results.
It's the ultimate commercial paradox, really. On one side, you have the vast majority of the business world just burning time and capital on this, like, illusion of progress.
Yeah, just spinning their wheels.
Right. And then on the exact same playing field, using the exact same widely available tools, a tiny fraction of companies are pulling away from their competitors.
Oh.
And at a speed we really haven't seen since the dawn of the internet.
Which tells us something incredibly important right out of the gate, and it really frames our entire mission today.
Definitely.
We are not looking at a failure of the technology itself, because if the tools were fundamentally broken, well, that high-performing 5% just wouldn't exist.
No, they wouldn't. We're looking at a failure of human psychology.
Exactly. A massive systemic failure of approach. So today, we are extracting the core insights from a really fascinating stack of sources.
Yeah, we have an executive briefing and a comprehensive strategic guide authored by Larissa Hale from Expert Circle.
Right, and both are titled The Marathon Mindset, a strategic guide to AI marketing growth.
Such a great title.
It is. And our goal for this deep dive is to figure out exactly what psychological traps are keeping that 95% stuck in the mud.
And, decode the framework the 5% are using to turn this technology into an unfair commercial advantage.
Which is what everyone listening wants, right? But what makes these particular materials so vital is that they completely ignore the technical jargon.
Yes, thank goodness.
I mean, there's no discussion here about the underlying kind of large language models or the sheer computational power required to run them.
None of that. The focus is entirely on human behavior, strategic clarity, and actual business outcomes.
Because the gap between the winners and the losers right now has absolutely nothing to do with who has the biggest software budget.
No, it's entirely about how they think.
And that leads to my genuine curiosity here, because the friction just doesn't make sense on paper. I mean, we are talking about tools that are practically free.
Literally less than a monthly coffee subscription, according to the sources.
Right. The barrier to entry is literally just a sign up with Google button.
That's it.
And yet this massive wall of burnout and failure exists. So if it's not the cost and it's not the tech, why are incredibly smart, capable business leaders suddenly losing all their strategic sense the moment they open a browser tab?
Well, to understand the collapse in logic, we really have to examine what the sources call the adoption paradox.
Okay, let's get into that.
And the core of this paradox is actually the low cost itself. Think about how a traditional enterprise operates, right?
Right.
If a company decides to purchase, say, a $100,000 piece of enterprise management software, that purchase comes with intense scrutiny.
Oh, massive scrutiny. Board meetings, vendor pitches, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly. There's a deeply researched strategy. There's a dedicated implementation team. There are strict, defined metrics for what success looks like in 6 months, 12 months, and 2 years.
But when a marketing director pays $20 for a ChatGPT subscription,
They just start typing.
yeah, because it feels like opening a new email account. You don't write a strategic brief for opening an email account.
Yeah, you just jump in. And the consequences of that are laid out pretty starkly in the research.
Yeah, the Jasper State of AI Marketing report had a crazy stat on this.
It did. It found that 51% of marketers cannot measure the return on investment of their AI tools at all.
Over half the industry.
It's literally flying blind. They are spending hours a week interacting with a machine, and they have zero empirical way of knowing if it's actually moving the business forward.
They're completely unmoored from their commercial objectives.
Right. And the source material meticulously breaks down the behavioral patterns that cause this. It usually starts with what we can call the single tool isolation behavior.
Okay, prop number 1.
Exactly. This is the most common entry point for a business. Someone discovers a tool, maybe it's ChatGPT, maybe Claude, and they decide to test it out on one very specific, entirely isolated task.
And universally, that task ends up being something like writing social media posts or drafting a generic newsletter.
Always.
Let's actually visualize that, because I think everyone listening has either done this or watched someone do this.
Oh, for sure.
Imagine you're a marketing manager for a mid-sized accounting firm. You have a deadline looming. You open up this miraculous $20 tool and you type into Docs. Write a LinkedIn post about our new corporate tax
A
service.
classic prompt.
Right. You hit enter, you lean back, and you wait for the magic. And what happens?
The machine spits out a perfectly structured, grammatically flawless paragraph.
That starts with, in today's fast-paced digital landscape, navigating complex tax regulations is more important than ever.
Ugh. Yes, and reading that is like eating cardboard.
It has absolutely no soul.
It has no specific point of view. It lacks any real understanding of what makes that specific accounting firm different from the 10,000 other accounting firms fighting for attention on that exact same platform.
It's just the absolute average of the internet.
Worse than that, it's the average of your competitors. You are essentially asking a machine to strip away your unique value proposition and make you sound like everybody else.
But here is where the psychological trap snaps shut.
This is the crucial part.
The user looks at that generic, boring output, and instead of realizing that their instruction was incredibly poor, they blame the software.
Always. They say, well, AI is overhyped. It doesn't really understand the nuances of the accounting industry.
It is a massive misattribution of failure.
Huge. I mean, the user provided zero context about their business, zero brand voice guidelines, and zero commercial objectives. But they expect a deeply nuanced, strategically brilliant output.
Which brings up an analogy from the sources I think perfectly encapsulates this entire dynamic.
The vending machine.
Yes, we are currently treating artificial intelligence like a vending machine.
It's so true.
Think about the mechanics of a vending machine. You walk up, you put a small coin in, you press a single button, and you expect a fully formed, perfectly tailored product to just drop into your hands.
Right. Instant gratification.
But in this scenario, you press the button, and a generic, unflavored can of fizzy water clunks down into the tray.
And what do?
We kick the machine, we curse at the machine for giving us fizzy water, completely ignoring the reality that we never actually told the machine what we wanted to drink.
We never provided a recipe.
No, we never indicated a preference, we just pressed a button and expected it to read our minds.
It is a brilliant way to conceptualize the friction. Because vending machines are designed for transactional, low-value interactions.
Yeah, exactly.
They are fundamentally incapable of complex, strategic alignment. If you approach generative AI with a vending machine mentality, putting in a tiny transactional prompt and expecting a massive strategic output, you will only ever receive low-value transactional results.
And the danger is that this initial disappointment doesn't usually cause a company to stop using AI, does it?
Paradoxically, no. It often triggers an even more destructive phase.
Trap number 2, because nobody wants to be left behind.
Right. So if the isolated tool fails to produce the revolution they were promised, the normal human reaction is to assume they just haven't bought enough tools.
Or the right tools.
Exactly. The sources describe this incredibly exhausting phase that follows. It's an anxiety-driven cycle of panic and fatigue.
Let's walk through how this typically plays out in a corporate environment, because it's honestly a little tragic.
It is, and it's deeply rooted in competitor envy and professional insecurity. Picture a senior business leader attending a major industry conference.
Okay.
They sit in the audience during a keynote presentation, and one of their fiercest competitors is up on stage raving about how implementing AI has completely revolutionized their lead generation.
Slashing operational costs by 40%.
Empowering their team, all the buzzwords. Our business leader is sitting in the dark, their heart rate is spiking, and panic sets in.
The immediate internal narrative is, we are falling dangerously behind.
We are going to be obsolete. We need to catch up, and we need to do it yesterday.
You can practically feel the oxygen leaving the room. It is pure, unfiltered, existential dread.
It really is. So that leader flies home, storms into the office on Monday morning, and initiates a massive, uncoordinated spending spree.
They purchase 5 different enterprise AI subscriptions.
Right. They buy software for copywriting, software for image generation, software for meeting transcriptions.
And then they gather their entire department in a room and issue a mandate.
We are now an AI-first company. I want everyone using these tools for everything, starting right now.
And this is the fatal flaw in the entire operation. They provide the team with absolutely no framework.
Zero. They offer no training on how to integrate these platforms into daily workflows, and they establish no metrics for what success actually looks like.
They just throw a pile of incredibly complex technology at their staff and demand magic.
It's the equivalent of a construction manager buying their crew a fleet of high-tech helicopters to get to the job site faster,
Yes.
but refusing to pay for flying lessons.
Of course there are going to be crashes. The
Yeah.
team is going to spend all their time staring at the control panels, terrified of pressing the wrong button.
And eventually, out of sheer self-preservation, they're just going to walk back to their pickup trucks and drive to work the old way.
And the data surrounding this exact scenario is alarming. The sources cite research from WalkMe.
Oh yeah, that stat is brutal.
71% of workers report that AI tools are appearing in their workflows faster than they can actually learn to use them. 71%. Think about the cognitive load that places on an employee.
It's massive.
Instead of experiencing a massive boost in productivity, the organization suffers from widespread, crippling burnout.
Within weeks, the initial executive enthusiasm curdles into deep tool fatigue.
Because employees end up spending more time managing software logins, troubleshooting basic errors, and trying to decipher different user interfaces than they do executing their actual jobs.
More tools without a strategic framework do not equal more strategy.
No, they just introduce more noise into an already chaotic system.
So if a company actually manages to survive that panic buying phase without completely burning out its staff, I'm assuming the danger isn't over.
Not at all. The sources mention trap number 3, a deeper, more fundamental misconception about how this technology operates.
And that's a set and forget myth, right?
Yes, it's the belief that because the software is powerful, the output should be instantaneous and effortless.
That is the ultimate illusion of the digital age. It's the expectation of the instant result. Business leaders have been conditioned by Google search and smartphone apps to believe that technology requires zero friction.
You type a query, you get an answer. You tap an icon, food arrives at your door.
Exactly. They apply that exact same mental model to generative AI. They believe they can just type a single sentence, receive a flawless, brilliant piece of strategic work, and immediately move on to their next meeting.
But to get genuine, compounding commercial value from this technology, it demands the exact opposite approach.
The exact opposite.
Expecting a finished product on the first try is absurd. The output you get from a single prompt isn't a final draft. It is barely a rough sketch.
Right. If you expect that magic button experience, you are essentially guaranteeing that you will remain in that 95% failure bracket.
The sources make a crucial paradigm-shifting point here, which I love. Artificial intelligence is not a piece of software that you simply install on your computer.
No, it is a discrete, complex skill that you must actively develop over time.
And developing a skill requires vulnerability.
It does. It requires acknowledging what you don't know. Which brings us to the psychological core of the issue.
Let's get into that. Because if the tools are cheap and the basic interfaces are relatively intuitive, why do incredibly smart, highly capable professionals continue to hit these walls?
Well, the source material suggests that the friction has absolutely nothing to do with a lack of technical intelligence.
Right.
It is entirely driven by deep-seated, unspoken psychological blockers that exist in almost every boardroom.
This is where we really need to dwell for a moment, because if you are listening to this, you are probably going to recognize these behaviors either in yourself or in your leadership team.
Oh, without a doubt.
When you ask a senior executive why their department hasn't fully integrated AI, they are almost never going to give you the honest answer.
No, they will retreat into corporate deflection.
Yeah. You'll hear phrases like, well, we're taking a measured approach to evaluate the vendor landscape.
Or, we have serious concerns about data privacy and compliance.
Or, we are waiting for the technology suite to mature. And sure, those are valid administrative considerations.
Sure, on the surface.
But the sources argue that the underlying reality, the raw truth that no one is willing to vocalize in a quarterly review, is fear.
Pure, unadulterated fear.
And they categorize this into 3 specific unspoken anxieties. Let's look at the first one, the internal voice saying, I will feel stupid.
It is a profoundly human reaction, especially for someone deeply entrenched in their career.
Yeah, imagine a senior director. They have spent 20, maybe 30 years mastering the nuances of their specific industry.
They've climbed the ladder through sheer competence.
Right. They are the recognized expert in the room. And suddenly, virtually overnight, this blank text box appears on their screen.
And this text box seemingly possesses a more comprehensive understanding of global supply chains, macroeconomic trends, and historical data than they could ever hope to acquire in a lifetime.
The capability gap is terrifying. You are essentially staring at an entity that has read the entire internet.
The fear isn't just about the technology itself.
No, it's the fear that the learning curve is so incredibly steep and the landscape is shifting so rapidly that simply attempting to learn it will expose how fundamentally out of touch you actually are.
It's the modern equivalent of being the only person in the office who doesn't know how to send an email. But the stakes are exponentially higher.
You feel like your entire legacy of expertise is being threatened by a blinking cursor?
Exactly. But the tragedy of that fear is that it is based on a complete misunderstanding of what is actually required to operate these systems.
Because you don't actually need to be a coder.
Not at all. The sources explicitly point out that the learning curve for conversational AI is vastly less technical than the curves these leaders have already conquered throughout their careers.
You do not need to understand Python.
You do not need a degree in machine learning. You do not need to understand how neural networks compile data.
What you actually need is the ability to think clearly, reason logically, and communicate your strategic intent effectively.
Which is fascinating because the skills required to master AI are the exact same skills required to be a great manager of human beings.
Which leads directly into the second massive fear hiding in the corporate subconscious. And I think this is the one that actually keeps people awake at 3 in the morning.
The fear of replacement.
Yes, the internal voice saying, artificial intelligence will replace me. Let's follow the dark logic here because it makes a twisted kind of sense if you are feeling vulnerable.
Walk me through it.
The thought process goes like this. If I actually take the time to learn this tool and I figure out how to make my entire department 10 times more efficient, if we can produce in 1 hour what used to take us a week, I am literally writing the business case for my own redundancy.
I am personally training the algorithm that is going to take my job.
Exactly.
It is an incredibly pervasive, paralyzing fear. It causes passive resistance across entire organizations. But if we pull back and look at the actual data and the broader market reality,
The truth is the exact inverse of what people are afraid of.
it really is.
Yeah.
Generative AI, in its current state, does not replace strategic thinkers. It replaces people who do not think strategically.
It replaces task doers. Let's unpack that distinction because it is literally the difference between keeping your job and losing it.
Okay, let's look at the mechanics of a daily workflow.
Right. If your entire professional value to a company is rooted in mechanical execution, if your day consists of manually formatting spreadsheets, summarizing meeting notes, or writing basic informational update emails.
Then yes, your position is highly vulnerable. A machine can do that faster, cheaper, and with fewer errors.
But if your value is rooted in interpreting that data, if your value is looking at a complex market analysis, making nuanced judgment calls, managing human relationships, and steering the strategic direction of the ship,
Then the AI doesn't replace you at all. It makes you superhuman.
it strips away all the administrative friction that bogs down your day.
Exactly, allowing you to spend 90% of your time doing the high-level strategic thinking that actually moves the needle.
The sources frame this in a very empowering way. Choosing to master AI right now is the single greatest act of career protection available in the modern economy.
It is the ultimate moat.
And the window of opportunity for that protection is wide open right now. I was stunned by the data point the sources included from Thomson Reuters.
The training stat.
Yeah, they released a report showing that currently only 1/3 of organizations are offering generative AI training to their staff.
Which means 2/3 of the corporate world is entirely paralyzed by indecision or fear.
Think about the massive asymmetric advantage that presents to you, the listener, right now. If you take the personal initiative to upskill yourself while the majority of your peers are hiding under their desks hoping the technology goes away,
You transition from being potentially redundant to being absolutely indispensable.
you become the person who knows how to wield the power tools.
Which brings us to the third fear. And this one is more nuanced. It usually comes from the creatives, the marketers, the people responsible for the brand's identity. The fear is, I will lose my authenticity.
I'm going to push back on this one heavily on behalf of the listener because honestly, I feel this fear deeply and I think it is entirely justified.
Let's hear the argument.
The argument goes like this. Our company has spent years cultivating a distinct, recognizable voice in the market. It's the thing that separates us from our sterile, boring competitors.
Right, the brand voice.
If I start routing all our communication, our thought leadership, and our marketing through the exact same algorithm that my competitors are using, an algorithm trained on the exact same data set of internet sludge, won't our unique identity inevitably dissolve?
It's a very valid concern.
Are we all just going to converge into one giant, indistinguishable blob of corporate speak? I mean, we've all scrolled through LinkedIn and seen those posts.
Oh, they all use the word delve.
Yes, or
Yeah.
testaments. They all have the exact same cadence. It feels like a sea of plastic. Isn't that fear of the blob 100% valid?
It is a phenomenal question. And the answer is yes. Your fear is absolutely undeniably valid if you operate the technology poorly.
Huh.
The sources agree with your assessment entirely. If you use untrained, unguided AI, it sounds exactly like everyone else because it is mathematically designed to be the average of human thought.
Because it's just predicting the next word.
Right. The underlying mechanism of a large language model is essentially a massive prediction engine. When you ask it a question, it calculates the statistical probability of which word should logically follow the next based on billions of parameters.
So if you don't give it strict constraints,
It will always default to the highest probability, safest, most generic pathway.
that is how you get the plastic corporate speak.
Exactly. It is the path of least mathematical resistance.
Okay, so the million-dollar question. How do we disrupt that mathematical probability? How do we avoid the blob and retain our authenticity?
You avoid the blob by entirely abandoning what the source material calls the one-prompt myth.
Okay, what is that?
This is the toxic idea, that you can just toss a single conversational instruction at the machine and receive a masterpiece.
Like the vending machine.
Exactly. To retain your unique voice, you have to completely reframe your relationship with the software. You have to stop treating it like that transactional vending machine, and you have to start treating it like a highly capable, incredibly eager, but completely ignorant new hire.
You have to actively onboard the intelligence.
Yes.
This is the paradigm shift. If there is a fulcrum point in this entire deep dive, this is it.
It changes everything.
The Larissa Hale Guide introduces a concept that completely changes the trajectory of how you interact with the machine. Let's really drill down into this new hire analogy because it makes the abstract mechanics of AI incredibly practical.
It does.
Walk me through the thought process here.
Imagine your company just hired a brilliant new marketing executive. Let's call him David.
Okay, hey, David.
David graduated at the top of his class from a prestigious university. He possesses all the raw cognitive capability you could ever want. He understands grammar, he understands syntax, he understands the history of marketing.
Sounds like a great hire.
He shows up for his first day at your office, sits down at his desk, and you walk up to him. Do you immediately say, David, I need you to write a 5-page, highly nuanced thought leadership article about our company's new strategic pivot, and then turn around and walk out of the room?
Of course not. That would be managerial malpractice.
Right.
David might be brilliant, but he doesn't know anything about us. He doesn't know what specific products we sell. He doesn't know the pain points of our target demographic.
Exactly.
He doesn't know if our CEO prefers a tone that is cheeky and disruptive or a tone that is highly academic and restrained.
Yeah.
If I forced him to write that article with zero context, the output would be absolute garbage.
It would be generic fluff because he would be guessing. Precisely. In the real world, you would spend days, perhaps weeks, onboarding David. You would hand him your extensive brand guidelines. You would walk him through your detailed client personas.
You'd show him examples of past campaigns that failed and explain why.
You would invest significant human capital into giving him the contextual boundaries he needs to apply his raw intelligence to your specific commercial goals.
Context is the essential catalyst. It transforms raw skill into actual business value.
And the profound realization here is that generative AI requires the exact same process.
When you just open a fresh ChatGPT window and type, write a blog post, you are effectively abandoning a brilliant new hire in an empty room on their first day and expecting them to read your mind.
The output is generic because the input was lazy.
Wow.
The solution to this, the mechanical tool to actually onboard the algorithm, is what the sources refer to as the context brief, or sometimes the expert voice brief.
This is the mechanism that solves the authenticity problem.
It really is. The context brief is a highly structured foundational document. Before you ever ask the AI to produce a single sentence of outward-facing content, you feed it a comprehensive paragraph that defines, with surgical precision, exactly who it is supposed to be emulating.
You are essentially building a digital persona.
You are.
Let's break down the anatomy of this brief. What specific elements are we commanding the AI to adopt?
A robust context brief must contain several non-negotiable elements. First, identity. You give the AI a name, a title, and a company context.
Okay.
Second, perspective. You explicitly define the specific expertise and the unique worldview of this persona.
Got it.
Third, and critically, tone of voice. And you cannot just say professional.
Because professional means boring to an AI.
Exactly. You must use highly descriptive adjectives. Is the tone direct, conversational, deeply analytical, fiercely provocative, empathetic?
Be specific.
Fourth, audience. A detailed, granular description of exactly who this persona is speaking to. And finally, core themes. You provide 3 to 4 key concepts or philosophies that this persona always wants to be associated with.
Let's ground this in reality for the listener. Instead of the vending machine prompt, write a post about accounting. Let's look at what a context brief actually sounds like.
Let's hear it.
It would look something like this. You are acting on behalf of Jane Smith, the managing partner at Smith & Company. Jane is widely known in her industry for her fiercely contrarian views on corporate tax law.
Great start.
Her tone of voice is sharp, occasionally witty, highly analytical, and completely devoid of corporate jargon. She is speaking directly to mid-market CEOs who are deeply frustrated with traditional, slow-moving, overly conservative accounting firms.
Notice constraints there.
And it finishes with, the 3 core themes Jane wants to be associated with in every piece of content are aggressive regulatory compliance, extreme financial agility, and proactive risk management.
Listen to the density of that instruction. Think about what happens mathematically inside the language model when you input that brief.
You have completely altered the vector space of the probabilities.
Yes. The AI can no longer pull from the generic center of the internet. You have forced it into a very specific, highly constrained corner of its knowledge base.
It is now evaluating every subsequent word choice through the aggressive, witty, contrarian lens of Jane Smith.
And the true beauty of this mechanism, the part that scales so efficiently, is that this isn't an exhausting daily chore.
No, you sit down, you spend perhaps 20 or 30 minutes doing this deep, reflective thinking once.
You argue with your team about whether your tone is witty or authoritative.
Right. You finalize this identity, you save it in a simple text document, and then you just paste it at the very top of every single new chat window before you begin your actual work.
It becomes a reusable foundational asset.
Once the machine processes that brief, it stops being a generic oracle and assumes the specific mask you've provided.
The outputs instantly transition from hollow corporate noise to credible, highly distinctive thought leadership.
You have successfully bypassed the blob.
You have.
But, parsing through this guide, I hit a massive realization. If this context brief is the magical key to unlocking authentic AI, and it really only takes 30 minutes to draft, why isn't every single company on Earth doing this?
That's the real question.
Why does the 95% failure rate still exist? The answer the sources provide to this is, frankly, a little uncomfortable.
It is perhaps the most profound strategic insight in the entire text.
Okay, let's hear it.
If a business leadership team sits down to write this 20-minute brief, if they sit at a conference table and attempt to clearly define their unique tone, their specific target audience, and the 3 distinct themes that differentiate them from their competitors, and they draw a total blank, it exposes a terrifying reality.
Because they don't actually know.
Exactly. It exposes a systemic pre-existing issue within the company. It means they do not actually know what their own value proposition is.
Oh, wow. So the artificial intelligence isn't failing them at all. The AI is just acting as a mirror.
Precisely. The context brief does not create the strategic confusion. It violently surfaces the lack of strategic clarity that was already rotting the foundation of their marketing.
That makes so much sense.
If you, as a human leader, do not know what makes your company fundamentally different, the algorithm cannot invent a personality for you.
No, it can't. Businesses that have spent the last 5 years coasting on vague, comfortable messaging suddenly realize they have absolutely nothing of substance to feed into the machine.
It's a harsh awakening.
That is a harsh, but absolutely necessary reality check. If you cannot articulate to a machine in a single paragraph why someone should hire your firm, you almost certainly aren't articulating it clearly to your human customers either.
Exactly. Your marketing was likely failing long before you ever bought an AI subscription.
Okay, so let's assume a listener takes this to heart. They do the hard, uncomfortable work. They wrestle with their value proposition. They finalize their killer context brief, and they paste it into their AI platform.
Good for them.
The machine now understands exactly who they are. The natural instinct at this point is to say, great, start churning out 50 blog posts and 100 tweets.
Which is the next trap.
Right. According to the Larissa Hale Guide, stopping there is the next major mistake. If we want to move from just saving a little bit of time to achieving that 3 times return on investment, We have to force another paradigm shift.
We do. We have to elevate the AI from a mere content producer to a strategic thinking partner.
This represents the critical transition from tactical execution to high-level strategy.
Using AI to draft emails or write social media copy is a fine place to start. It builds muscle memory and helps you get comfortable with the interface.
Sure.
But the compounding exponential returns only materialize when the intelligence is integrated across the entire commercial framework of the business.
We are talking about using AI to define commercial objectives, analyze market focus, structure channel strategy.
You stop asking it to write, and you start asking it to think.
To make this concrete, the sources provide two incredibly powerful use cases for this strategic elevation. And these are frameworks that a listener could literally implement this afternoon.
Highly actionable.
Let's dissect use case 1, setting 90-day goals. We discussed earlier that devastating Jasper statistic, 49% of marketers cannot measure the ROI of their AI efforts.
Right.
This specific use case is the direct antidote to that problem. How do we execute it?
The fundamental rule here is, before you ask the machine to create a single piece of marketing collateral, you use the machine to figure out what you should actually be marketing in the first place.
Okay, so no content generation yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You start a session and prompt the AI with your newly minted context brief, but then you add your current high-level business priorities.
For example.
For example, you might type, based on our identity as Jane Smith's accounting firm, our current business priorities for Q3 are to increase our monthly recurring revenue and successfully launch our new proactive audit product.
Giving it the destination.
Right. Then you ask, analyze our audience and suggest 3 highly specific, measurable marketing goals for the next 90 days to achieve this.
But the prompts doesn't stop there, and this is the genius part. You explicitly command the AI to attach a specific tracking metric to each of those goals.
And you demand that it outlines exactly how its own capabilities can be used to support achieving them.
You force it to build its own accountability structure.
Exactly. The output you receive isn't a piece of content. It's a customized, highly structured, strategic framework.
Give me an example of what that output might look like.
The AI might respond with, Goal 1. Increase registrations for the new audit webinar by 20% among mid-market CEOs. Metric for success. Cost per acquisition remaining under $50.
And for the AI execution part.
AI support execution. Use this platform to rapidly generate and A/B test 10 different highly provocative email subject lines aligned with Jane Smith's contrarian tone.
Suddenly, you have entirely removed the guesswork. You aren't just firing content into the void of the internet and hoping someone clicks. You are executing a measurable, trackable strategy.
If you mandate this process before any production begins, it becomes mathematically impossible to be part of that 49% who can't prove their return on investment.
Because you defined exactly what success looked like and how you were going to measure it before you ever pressed go.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move to use case 2, because this one feels even more intense. It's called testing the value proposition.
This is a favorite of mine.
This feels akin to opening up the hood of your business and letting a machine diagnose your engine while it's still running. How does this analysis work?
This is where the sheer analytical power of the language model really shines. You take your core positioning statement, the 2 or 3 sentences you currently use on your website to describe what you do and why you matter.
Okay.
You feed that into the AI. But then you also copy and paste the positioning statements from the homepages of your top 3 direct competitors. You feed all of that text into the system, and you ask the AI to run a brutal comparative analysis.
You ask, analyze these 4 positioning statements. Where are we all overlapping? Where are we all making the exact same claims to the market?
And I can almost guarantee what the AI is going to say.
It's going to point out that everyone is saying, we provide high-quality, client-focused, innovative solutions.
Yep, because everyone thinks they're unique, but when you strip away the branding, the baseline claims are identical.
Right. The AI acts as a ruthless, unbiased auditor. It will immediately highlight that claims of quality and years of experience are table stakes, not differentiators.
Precisely. But the real value comes from the follow-up prompt. Once it maps the overlap, you ask the strategic question.
Which is?
Based on my specific context brief and my unique capabilities, identify 3 distinct defensible angles or market positions that my competitors cannot credibly claim, but that I can.
I love this. You are literally weaponizing the AI to find the white space in your industry. You are asking it to find the gaps in the armor of your competitors.
If we pull back and look at the larger commercial landscape, think about the magnitude of what you are accomplishing here.
It's huge.
You are sitting at your desk doing 10 to 15 minutes of work in a chat window, and you are extracting the kind of deep strategic clarity and competitive market analysis that historically, well, it would have required hiring a prestigious strategy consultancy for a 6-week, $50,000 engagement.
You are utilizing the intelligence to map the terrain.
Yes.
Okay, I have to step in and push back here. Because as amazing as this sounds, it borders on science fiction.
Fair enough.
What does this actually mean for the human leader listening to this? Are we suggesting that they should just hand the steering wheel of their entire business strategy over to a mathematical algorithm?
No, not at all.
Are we supposed to just blindly pivot our company based on whatever the machine decides our differentiator is? Where does human agency fit into this?
That is a critical boundary to establish, and the source materials are aggressively clear on this point. Absolutely not. The artificial intelligence does not and cannot replace human executive judgment. Think of the AI in this scenario as an incredibly tireless, highly efficient forward scout.
Okay.
Its job is to run ahead, survey the landscape, map out where the enemy is clustered, locate the open terrain, and highlight 3 or 4 potential paths forward. It returns to camp and hands you the map.
But you, the human leader, still hold the ultimate responsibility.
Exactly. You must look at that map, filter those options through your own intuition, your decades of market experience, your understanding of your team's internal capabilities, and your personal risk tolerance.
You make the final decision on which path to march down.
The machine calculates the possibilities. The human judgment decides the reality. It accelerates the thinking process dramatically, but it does not replace the thinker.
It's a co-pilot, not an autopilot.
Very well said.
Okay, theory is wonderful. We can talk about mapping terrain and finding white space all day, but listeners want proof.
They want the receipts.
Exactly. They want to know what happens when the rubber actually meets the road. What happens when a real company applies this entire framework? The deep context brief, the strategic analysis, the refusal to act like a vending machine to a massive commercial objective.
Well, the sources provide a phenomenal, detailed case study that anchors all of this.
The £2.5 million real-world application. Let's dissect this, because this is where the methodology really proves its worth.
This case study perfectly illustrates the difference between sprinting and running the marathon. The subject is a specialized engineering consultancy.
Okay.
Functionally, they were excellent. They possessed incredibly strong technical capabilities. However, commercially, they were struggling with the exact strategic rot we just discussed.
So they didn't know their value proposition.
They had deeply unclear market positioning, and as a result, their sales materials were underperforming. They had a structural problem.
Yeah.
They were blending very high-value, complex strategic consultancy services with standard, lower-margin operational work in their marketing.
They were trying to be everything to everyone.
And it was deeply confusing to their prospective clients.
So if they had adopted the typical panicked sprint mindset, the vending machine approach, that 95% of companies use their solution would have been obvious.
Right. They would have taken their old, confusing, muddy company brochure, pasted all the text into ChatGPT, and simply typed, "Rewrite this to sound more professional and persuasive."
And the algorithm would have complied.
Happily. It would have returned a brochure that was perhaps slightly more polished, grammatically flawless, and utilized better vocabulary.
But it would have been equally confusing at its core. The structural flaw would remain.
Exactly. They would have simply used advanced technology to build the exact same wrong thing, just marginally faster.
But Larissa Hale and the team at Expert Circle didn't allow them to do that. They enforced the marathon approach.
They forced them to slow down before they sped up.
They mandated that strategy had to precede production. Instead of asking the AI to write copy, they first used the AI's analytical capabilities to deeply examine the firm's mixed service offering.
They fed all the data regarding the firm's services, delivery costs, and competitor pricing into the system, and asked it to look for structural inefficiencies.
And what did it find?
The AI analysis illuminated a massive discrepancy that the human executive team had missed or perhaps ignored. It revealed that their high-end consultancy services were severely underpriced relative to the immense value they provided the market.
And the operational work.
Their basic operational services were absorbing overhead costs that simply could not be commercially justified.
It essentially ran a diagnostic and found a massive leak in the hull of the boat. And it wasn't a marketing leak, it was a fundamental business model leak.
Yes, So the intervention had to happen at the executive level. Before they allowed anyone to write a single word of new marketing copy, the leadership team had to do the painful work of restructuring their entire business offering.
They had to recalibrate their pricing models.
They made the strategic decision to isolate and elevate the highly profitable consultancy work as their core primary value proposition.
They fixed the business first.
Yes. Only then, once that strategic foundation was rock solid, did they take that new razor-sharp value proposition and feed it into the generative AI.
Alongside a meticulously crafted context brief.
Exactly. To generate the actual outbound sales materials, pitch decks, and website copy.
And the tangible, measurable result of this structured approach, those new strategically aligned materials went out into the market, and the firm successfully won a major multi-year project worth £2.5 million.
A massive transformative win for a mid-sized consultancy.
But the sources hammer home a point here that is absolutely crucial for the listener to internalize. It is the defining lesson of the case study. An AI-generated PDF brochure did not win a £2.5 million contract.
Right. The machine didn't close the deal.
Strategic clarity won that contract. The courage of the leadership team to restructure their pricing and abandon their lower margin work won that contract.
The artificial intelligence was simply the highly efficient mechanism that accelerated the initial analysis and then executed the communication of that strategy flawlessly.
I want to offer an analogy here to really cement this concept. It's like deciding to build a custom home, and you hire a master builder.
Okay, I like where this is going.
In this scenario, artificial intelligence is the ultimate futuristic set of power tools. It has the most powerful pneumatic nail guns, the most precise laser-guided saws, the most advanced measuring equipment on Earth.
It can frame the walls of the house in absolute record time.
Right. But if your architectural blueprint is fundamentally flawed, if the architect designed the blueprint so that the master bathroom is located right in the middle of the kitchen.
Well, those miraculous power tools are not going to save you.
No, they are simply going to help you construct a really terrible, deeply dysfunctional house much, much faster. The blueprint represents your commercial strategy. The power tools just execute what the blueprint dictates.
That is a perfect encapsulation. The engineering firm realized their blueprint was flawed. They put the tools down, they fixed the architectural blueprint, and then they picked the tools back up to build the house.
That is the marathon mindset in action.
It really is.
Okay, so a multi-million-pound win is the dream scenario. That level of compounding success comes from building what the sources refer to as a comprehensive AI-assisted marketing growth plan.
It's an entire operational system.
But I know the person listening to this right now, they might be sitting in traffic or at their desk or walking the dog. They appreciate the theory and they understand the case study, but they want to know what they can physically do today.
How do they start?
How do we transition from absorbing this deep dive to actually lacing up our shoes and taking the first steps of this marathon?
Well, the Larissa Hale Guide is incredibly pragmatic about this. It does not leave the reader stranded in high-level theory. The text lays out 3 immediate, highly actionable steps that any professional can execute this week to begin rewiring their approach.
Let's go through them. What's step 1?
The first step is the foundational one we discussed. Write your context brief.
And crucially, the instruction here is to step away from the software to do it. Set a timer on your phone for 20 minutes, get a pen and a piece of paper, or open a blank Word document.
Define your distinct voice. Define your core target audience. Articulate the 3 themes that make you different. Save that document.
The rule is, do not open ChatGPT, do not open Claude, do not open any AI platform again until that foundational brief is written and saved.
Step 2 is about alignment. Define your 3 90-day goals and attach specific metrics to them before you produce any outbound content.
So if you are going to use the AI to generate a blog post, you must first know exactly what commercial objective that blog post is serving and how you will measure its success.
Exactly. If you cannot articulate how to measure it, the guidance is simple. Do not do it.
And step 3. I think this is the most challenging one for the people who are addicted to the vending machine speed.
Yes, the mandate is commit to executing one single task from start to finish using the proper framework.
Meaning you start with the pen and paper to define the goal. You open the software, you load your new context brief to set the parameters, you issue the prompt, you receive the first draft.
And this is where 95% of people fail. You iterate.
This touches on something truly unique about interacting with this specific technology. You have to understand the nature of the entity you are dealing with.
You are collaborating with an intelligence that possesses infinite, completely inexhaustible patience.
If you are unsatisfied with a paragraph, you can ask the AI to rewrite it. If it's still not right, you can ask it to rewrite it again.
You can ask it to rewrite a single sentence 37 times in a row.
You can command it. Make this punchier. Now make it more academic. Now combine the first and third ideas, drop the second idea, and rewrite the whole thing from the perspective of a deeply skeptical CFO.
It will execute those commands instantly. And crucially, it will never get physically tired, it will never roll its eyes at you, and it will never harbor quiet passive-aggressive resentment against you for being an incredibly demanding boss.
Think about that. You literally cannot do that with a human employee. If you asked a human copywriter to rewrite a paragraph 37 times, they would quit, and they would be entirely justified in doing so.
But the machine doesn't care. And yet, the tragedy is that most professionals use this incredible, superhuman iterative capability exactly 0 times.
They input a prompt, they take the very first draft the machine spits out, they convince themselves it's good enough, and they publish it.
The marathon mindset means developing the internal discipline to push back on the machine.
This is exactly why the source material uses the metaphor of a marathon. A marathon is not a slow walk. It is a sustained high-energy output over a long distance.
It is about possessing the mental stamina, the stamina to look at the AI's first draft and say, no, this is too generic.
The stamina to aggressively redirect the second draft.
The stamina to keep pushing, tweaking, and challenging the output until it crosses the threshold from being merely passable to being genuinely, uniquely excellent.
But the sources also offer a warning here. As you build that stamina, as you implement the context brief and start seeing real success, there are new traps waiting for you.
Yes, they outline 3 specific failure modes that tend to sneak up on organizations precisely when they think they have cracked the code.
Let's explore these so the listener knows what pitfalls to watch out for down the road. What is the first one?
The first failure mode is deceptively simple. Stopping.
Stopping. Just quitting.
Yeah, you build the framework, you run the process perfectly, you generate a brilliant piece of strategic analysis or a highly successful marketing campaign, you feel a massive sense of accomplishment, and then you just stop using the system.
You revert to your old workflows.
Exactly. You lose the consistency. And the problem is, without consistent daily interaction, the relationship with the AI stalls. The compounding returns vanish.
It's like running the first mile of the marathon at a record pace, deciding you're a great runner, and then just calling an Uber to go home. You have to stay on the track.
Precisely. The second failure mode is the exact opposite problem. Overproduction.
Because it's too easy now.
Right. Because the framework makes it so incredibly easy and efficient to generate high-quality content. Once the system is dialed in, businesses suddenly lose their minds. They produce 30 blog posts, 10 white papers, and 100 social media posts in a single week.
But they haven't updated their distribution strategy.
They create a massive mountain of excellent content that absolutely no one ever sees because their audience can't process it that fast. Volume without a targeted distribution direction is just expensive waste.
It's the old adage, quality over quantity. Just because you now possess a machine that allows you to print 1 million incredibly persuasive flyers doesn't mean you should throw them out of an airplane. You still need to hand them to the right people.
Exactly.
And what is the third failure mode?
Passivity. And I would argue this is the most dangerous trap for senior leadership.
How so?
Well, over time, as the AI consistently produces good work, you start trusting the algorithm a little too much. You stop scrutinizing the outputs.
They get lazy.
You begin accepting the drafts without applying that rigorous, active human judgment we discussed earlier. You stop asking the hard questions. Does this actually sound like us? Or is this truly our best, most innovative thinking?
You begin treating the AI's first or second draft as a finished product rather than a highly competent starting point.
And the very moment you become passive in this relationship, you surrender your strategic edge back to the machine.
Okay, we have covered an immense amount of ground today. Let's take a deep breath and logically recap the journey we've been on to ensure all these concepts really lock into place.
No idea.
We started by examining the terrifying adoption paradox, the reality that 95% of corporate AI pilots fail completely despite the technology being practically free.
We diagnosed the root cause of this, the vending machine mentality.
The tendency to fall into the single tool trap, panic buy software without a framework, and believe the myth that AI should be a set-and-forget, instant result magic button.
From there, we explored the boardroom psychology driving these bad behaviors. We unpacked the three unspoken fears.
Right, the fear of feeling intellectually obsolete, the fear of being replaced, and the fear of losing the brand's authentic
Yet
voice.
we systematically dismantled those fears by looking at the data, proving that AI does not replace strategic thinkers. It radically empowers them and offers ultimate career protection for those willing to learn.
We then introduced the structural antidote to the generic plastic corporate blob, the context brief.
We established the paradigm shift of treating the algorithm not as a calculator, but as a brilliant, ignorant new hire.
We detailed the necessity of explicitly defining your voice, your perspective, and your audience before asking for a single output.
And we elevated the AI from a mere content writer to a true strategic partner, demonstrating how to use it to set highly measurable 90-day commercial goals and ruthlessly analyze competitor overlaps to find market whitespace.
And we grounded all of this theory in the £2.5 million engineering consultancy case study, which definitively proved that strategy must always precede execution.
The human leadership must fix the architectural blueprint before they fire up the technological power tools.
Which brought us, finally, to the mechanics of the marathon mindset itself. The requirement for relentless iteration, the mental stamina to demand excellence from an infinitely patient machine, and the actionable physical steps you can take today to begin.
If there is one overarching critical concept you, the listener, take away from this entire deep dive, let it be this. Artificial intelligence is not a magic button. It is discipline.
It is a skill that compounds exponentially over time, but only if you possess the discipline to put in the unglamorous foundational work.
Tomorrow morning, when you get to your desk, before you even think about opening a browser tab or logging into a platform, start with a pen and a blank piece of paper. Define exactly who you are and exactly what commercial outcome you want to achieve.
That simple analog act of defining your strategy puts you light years ahead of 95% of the market.
It really does.
I want to leave you with one final lingering thought. There is a very subtle point buried deep in the Larissa Hale source material that really stuck with me, and it reframes this entire conversation.
Oh, what?
The text notes that the artificial intelligence fundamentally does not care how you choose to interact with it. It is entirely malleable. It adapts to however you work best.
That's true.
If you are someone who likes to pace around the room and brainstorm out loud, you can use the voice-to-text feature and just talk to it. If you are a highly logical, structured thinker, you can feed it rigid, bulleted prompts.
And if you're a messy thinker, you can just dump a raw stream of consciousness in there.
Exactly, and ask it to organize your thoughts for you. The software completely adapts to your personal cognitive style, which raises an incredible and honestly a slightly uncomfortable thought to ponder.
Oh, well.
We spend all this time in the business world complaining that the AI doesn't understand our industry or that it gives us generic, useless answers. But if the machine is designed to perfectly adapt to and reflect our own communication style,
What if we're the problem?
what if the biggest bottleneck to getting amazing transformative results out of artificial intelligence isn't the software's mathematical limitations at all? What if the real bottleneck is our own fundamental lack of self-awareness? What if the friction comes from the fact that we don't actually know how we think, we don't understand how we process information, and we don't actually know what we are trying to say?
It is the ultimate psychological mirror. It shows us exactly how clear or how cluttered our own minds actually are.
Exactly. So the next time you walk up to the machine, you put your coin in, you press the button, and a generic, unflavored can of fizzy water clunks down into the tray.
Before you kick the machine.
Before you get angry and kick the machine, you might want to stop and ask yourself a very hard question. Did you actually know what you were thirsty for in the first place?